Welcome back to the Nexus Media Podcast. Hope everyone is doing well. Today we are joined by Cobra Kai Season 6 star Daniel Kim, who plays Yoon on the show, a student in the new Cobra Kai dojo formed by Kim Do and Sensei Kreese. By the time this video is out, both parts of the sixth and final season of Cobra Kai will be on Netflix. Daniel, how are you doing, man? And how's things been since joining the show? And what's the reception been like?
Doing so good, man. Thanks so much for having me on. It's really sweet getting to like meet you in person and do this. It's so great. Dude, the reception's been crazy. It's been wild just hearing how everyone's like clamoring for it and how hype everybody is for this new part. And it's got some of the best fights in the series. So for me and I don't know, for the rest of the cast, I know all of us are like, wow, we can't believe how overwhelmingly positive the response has been.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I'm curious to know, what was the audition process like, taking your mind back to part one and before that,
Yeah.
getting the role of Yoon?
It was crazy, man. I mean, like, for us, is if you can remember, is right before the strike happened, is when Brandon and I were first doing the whole rounds for the auditions. This would have been like June of last year. And I remember I just sent like one tape for, Yoon, this character who, seemed like he was a little like pretty structured, pretty like A plus kind of student, someone who's on top of his game, but has a little bit of like a pride issue, a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. And I just remember sending it in, being like, I love this show and we'll see what happens. And I didn't hear anything from them for a while. I got pinned on the show, but I didn't know if I got it. And so I was waiting from June all the way until January.
Oh,
And then
wow.
January, like 13th, like 12th, 13th on a Friday, I remember I got a call and they're like, hey, like you're on the show. I was like, what? Oh, sweet. When do I go? And they're like, Tuesday. So I packed my bags, I got everything ready, and I shipped out. So it was a whirlwind, but it was a real honor to be on the show and to be asked to be
Crazy. Yeah,
on.
sounds crazy. I think Brandon said the same thing when I spoke to him a couple months ago, how he was like left in anticipation this whole month and finding out at the end. It was like a
Yeah.
crazy feeling. It must have been awesome. What was it like to work with him, work with Brandon, and sharing that chemistry with him on screen? It really shows off.
Oh, thank you, man. Brandon's the best. Like Brandon's he's a friend in real life, and we actually got to set. We didn't know each other before we got there, but even in the plane ride over, I saw him about like 2 seats away. I was like, that guy, there can't be like another young Korean guy on the flight. Like, is that gonna be the guy who kicks me in the face? Sure enough, it was. We landed, and one of the big highlights, there's many highlights of just, filming part one and also part two, but one of the big ones was meeting Brandon, getting to work with him. Just working with the guy, he's so humble, so prepared, and a really great actor. And for me, it was really sweet to be able to have chemistry and just work alongside him. It was really, really fun. One of the highlights for me.
Yeah, you both are incredible actors. It shows off the accents and everything you put off. It's fantastic. I
Thank you,
asked
man.
Brandon a very similar question, but did you have any experience in Korean prior, or did you have to learn it for the show?
Oh, that's so my parents they spoke it around the home when I was growing up, and I'd speak in like half Korean, half English, Konglish. I get made fun of by my friends for how I speak Korean. So for me it was a pretty big step to go from having like a some level of conversational comfort to doing it fully. But the big shift for me was I'd done a theater show, half in Korean, half in English, and then I'd also done a short film with a significant amount in Korean. But both of those characters were like Americans, Korean Americans speaking Korean with their parents or with their family members. It wasn't like a Korean from Korea. So that was a big challenge. And I know both Brandon and I, like between days as filming, we're like, what are you saying? What am I saying? And we drill it in our hotels, just being like, hey man, like let's just run this. So yeah.
Yeah, and talking about your experience prior in filming and the world of film and TV, what was your inspiration to becoming an actor in the first place?
I stumbled on this world really early. I had a couple theater shows growing up when I was younger, and I remember I really caught the bug though when I went to a performing arts high
Oh, damn.
school, and that like think Victorious. It was basically like that, like the Disney Channel show.
Oh, damn.
But I really caught the bug, and I was like, oh, I really love this. I could see this as a career, and just kind of seeing that. And there was two performances really that really like grabbed me. One was I saw Good Will Hunting for the first time, and seeing Matt Damon and Robin Williams in that movie was like, oh my God, I want to do that. And then I saw this small documentary of this musical theater show called A Chorus Line, and it was the documentary is called Every Little Step. And I saw this one actor named Jason Tam do a monologue, and I realized I was like, damn, that could be me one day. And that was the first time I really was able to visualize being an actor. So yeah, man, I caught that bug real early on, right when I was around 15, 16.
Awesome, yeah, that's amazing. I think the earlier you catch it, the better you'll be. And yeah, it's
Yep,
great
yep.
that you put it early. Casting back to Cobra Kai now, getting the role and then finding out you're going to be directed by the Karate Kid, Ralph Macchio, in that third episode of part one. What was that experience like? Just finding out all of that, and how did you even process it? What was your first day on set like? And yeah, just tell me
I was
all.
I was freaking out, man. It's one thing to be like, "Hey, you're in a show," and then you're like, "Awesome," and they're like, "Oh, you're gonna speak Korean." You're like, "Oh, awesome," and then you're like, "You're gonna do martial arts." You're like, "Oh, okay," and then finally, it's like, "Oh, by the way, the Karate Kid is gonna be directing you on your very first day." I'm in my seat just going, I was freaking out, but it was also such an honor. And Ralph is such a generous and kind guy, on top of being like an incredible actor. And that episode is directed like so masterfully. So for us, we were in great hands. And to feel like we were being introduced into the Karate Kid world by the Karate Kid is a real gift. It makes you feel like, okay, like we're gonna be all right. And that's one of the big highlights for me too, is just working with Ralph and getting to receive direction from him. And he's just the absolute best.
I can imagine. And you're not only working with Ralph, you're also being, well, Sensei Kreese is your sensei, the Martin Cove. Like
I
incredible
know.
stuff, finding that out. What was it like to work with him, joining the set on the first day? And what was it like
Yeah.
to work with the cast in general? I mean, you have Zolo, you have Peyton List, you have Jacob Bertrand, all these OGs from 2018 when the show first came out. It must be an incredible feeling.
Oh yeah. I mean, no biggie, just working with all these legends. No, I mean, one of the big things is I remember Tanner came onto our set really early in 603. He came to visit and we didn't know it at the time, but he was kind of like scoping, just seeing like, who are these new guys? Who's this new Cobra Kai team that's coming in? Because he knew like some of the script. And we were like, oh, is he sizing us up? What's going on here? But he was so nice and he was so sweet. And but kind of just like working with the whole cast has been like just such a crazy gift. They were so welcoming to us. Like our first night that we came in for all of the Sekai Taikai stuff in part two, they were taking us out to dinner and we were hanging out. It was like I felt so intimidated going in, but they were so welcoming and almost made us like a part of the family instantly. Marty is like a huge part of that. You think like it's like, oh, it's John Kreese. Is he gonna strike me? He's gonna give me a little in the middle of the take. But no, Marty was so incredible to work with. And he's such an intense and wonderful actor. It's just like it's a gift to do that and have that on set.
And some of the other cast members I've spoken to of the show, they've all said they've picked up lots of things for life just working on this show. There's lots of morals and there's lots of life lessons you can gain from watching this show. So even imagining being on set, like the stuff you gain from it can be even better. It's also super wholesome, it's super funny. But how has working on show changed you as a person, if it has in any way, both mentally and maybe physically with your martial arts as well?
Oh, wow, that's such a great question. Yeah, man, I think it's like you can only step on the set of a dream show and a dream role, and you gotta be affected by that. And for me, I think there was really two major things. One was I think I've said before, but I had a break from martial arts for about 10 years before I came onto this show. And I'd done some field combat, stage combat, but really it being a part of my identity was something that I had kind of like left behind for a while. And I thought I was like, you know what? That was one thing when I was younger, but I'm moving on. But coming back into the show and doing martial arts helped me to fall back in love with it. And for that to be Cobra Kai that helped me fall back in love with martial arts, it's like poetry. It just rhymes. So it was so awesome for me to experience that. And the other thing is, I met so many incredibly accomplished, incredible actors, directors, writers, the big three. And something consistently I saw is like those people are just so like humble. They're so good at their work and they're so dedicated to just the process. And for me to kind of share space with those people, it was really affirming to be like, you know what? Like it's something that we can all do if we just sit down, nose to the grindstone, work at it. and for me that was just really, really inspiring being on set with them on and off set every single day.
Definitely, and thanks for sharing that. I want to talk about the comedic aspect of the show as well. It's just hilarious. Johnny, especially, man, this season MVP for me in terms of the jokes.
Oh my gosh.
Just cracking jokes every episode. Um, in
Yeah,
terms
it's
of
Barcelona, dipshit.
oh, that was the funniest line on the train. I was cracking
So
up.
good.
Yeah. In terms of comedy on set, I can imagine there must have been some fun moments. Are there any in particular that you would like to share with us?
Man, none of us can keep a straight face when Jacob and Johnny share a scene together. No matter what they're doing, when they're talking, I'm like, I'm going to break. These guys are so funny on and off set. They're hilarious. I remember, I think they just released it. I mean, obviously it'll be released now by the time this comes live, but they had the scene of us walking into the lobby and Miyagi-Do is there and we're giving them all the stares, right? But Jacob and Johnny, they had like little improv moments of lines that they're bickering back and forth with. Every single one of those was so funny. Just I was like, how do these guys keep a straight face every single time they have the camera on? It's crazy. But that's like everybody. Everyone's goofing, everyone's making jokes, like in between takes. It's wild. Those guys are as funny in real life as they are off.
Yeah, no, I've seen like so many interviews with Jacob and Zolo and like the charisma they bring. It's just
Oh
so
my God,
hilarious.
it's
And
crazy.
watching it.
Yeah,
Um,
whenever I was
uh,
in a room with them, oh man, good luck to me keeping a straight face. Good
yeah,
luck.
I can imagine. I would be cracking up as well. But this whole next part, like just talking about the next part two, the next set of 5 episodes, it was still fun as ever with even more twists and turns. But that 10th episode was nuts. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. What was your initial reaction upon reading the script?
Dude, is it Cobra Kai without a brawl? Without a crazy brawl? Nah, it ain't. So for me, just seeing that was, I was like, being able to read on the page is like this crazy multi-dojo brawl happens on the floor. I was like, this is gonna be insane. And I was just giddy, excited to learn the fights, to learn what was gonna happen, to see how it gets into and all the interpersonal relationships like feeding into that conflict. So cool. But I remember the biggest thing was Brandon and I both heard about it from Hayden. Hayden, one of the creators, Hayden Schlossberg. And he was taking us aside and telling us bits of the story and was feeding both of us just little bits and pieces. We were trying to piece them together. And when we heard, it's like, oh, like Quan is gonna die at the end of it. Spoilers for anybody who's watching. Sorry. What are you doing? Go watch it if you haven't seen it. But when we saw that, I was like, that's gonna be iconic.
Mm.
And being able to see that play out in the show was like it was as incredible as we hoped it would be.
Yeah, and I'm excited to talk to Brandon about part two and about that. Obviously, I spoke to him a few months ago.
You gotta,
He was
man, you
like, and
gotta.
I'm really looking forward to it because I have so many questions going through my mind. But what was the process filming just that crazy brawl in the last like, 15, 20 minutes of the show? I can imagine it was hectic, but also fun as ever. So tell me what it was like.
Yeah, I mean, that was such a whirlwind. We shot all of the Sekai Taikai fight scenes basically over the span of 2 weeks. We did the 606 and 607 fights, the Miyagi-Do fights, the big mat fight with the four dojos, and the platform fights, I think, in 1 week. And then we had the 6-9, 609, 610 fights, which is the big Miyagi-Do Cobra Kai like elimination match and then the big brawl also within a week. So I just remember it being like a whirlwind. Everyone was like, it was DEF CON, 10, 9, whatever. Everything was red alert. We were all dialed in and just drilling things the whole time. And it was so cool because it felt like we were actually in a tournament the whole time,
Yeah.
just getting on and off the mat, on and off the mat. It was really crazy, really cool.
I can imagine that. And I heard in an interview from Zola that there were a lot of extras on set as well, just giving you guys motivation. What was it like to
Yeah.
have just the entire team around you and just so many other people from different dojos just cheering you on? And how did that affect your performance as an actor?
I mean, it just adds to the realism, it just adds to the whole realism of the space and where you are. And you really feel like you're in this international tournament with the stakes as high as they are. And so, for both the story and for us, it just helps us get into it. And on top of that, some of those people, they're so sweet to talk to, just hanging out with them on the side. And they're as big of fans of the show as we are. And so, it's cool to just be able to hang out all together and be like, wow, this is really amazing what we're doing, huh? And we're like, yeah. So, yeah, it was really cool.
I can only imagine. And there's a lot of fights in this batch of episodes. And since playing the character of Yoon, what was your favorite fight scene involving the character? And are there any that were particularly challenging to film?
I feel like every single day I'm like, oh, a new one is my favorite. I'm like, oh, but that was really cool. That was really cool. Gosh, but I think I think it's still my favorite, and I love all the fights. But I think the one that I really love is the 609 fight, the one with the whole Miyagi-Do Cobra Kai elimination match. Like that one's such a great culmination of like the dojo rivalry and it just pays off so well for Hawk and for, Robbie. And it's just such a cool fight. And on top of that, that last like kick that Brandon and Tanner do,
That was
blood sport style is just crazy. It's so good. And it was fun getting my butt handed to me by Jacob and Johnny and Dallas. That multi-man three-way brawl was really fun.
Yeah, no, it sounded awesome. And I want to talk about the future of your character now. So how is Yoon feeling going into part three, knowing that his captain and also his rival as well has bitten the dust, and now there's potential for him to steal the spotlight and be the captain instead. So how's he feeling?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's probably feeling the way that we're all feeling. Like how can you predict something like that? Ball
Yeah,
on the floor, seeing his teammate get murked, you're like, what? That's crazy. And I think for Yoon, one of the biggest heartbreaks is, he in 603 lost his badge, lost his pride, lost his honor in a real Zuko kind of way. And he wanted to come into the Sekai Taikai to win that back on the mat with his team. And he has a friendship, a rivalry with this guy who's been a big part of his life, and seeing him fall like that, to not be able to prove himself against him in the mat like that. I think there's something about losing a rival that's almost as heartbreaking as losing a friend, you know, like losing a best friend. It's someone that you both share the same ambition, same goals. And I think for Yoon, wherever he ends up in part three, he's pretty shook. Even if he got the gold badge back, he didn't get it back the way he wanted. And so I'm excited to see what happens with him and how he feels coming into part three.
yeah, that's an interesting way to put it all together, actually. I never thought you would respond that way. I'm gonna end off with some fun questions now. If you could have any OG Karate Kid Sensei to lead your dojo other than Kreese, because you've already been trained by Kreese, who would it be and
Mm.
why?
Can I pick two? Can
Yeah,
I? For me, like I love the idea of Mr. Miyagi coming in. It's like, if that was possible,
yeah,
have the legendary Pat Morita come in and to meet him and talk with him, but also to train us. I would love to see Korean Cobra Kai with Pat Morita as the sensei and be like, whoa, how would that kind of change the whole dynamic? But besides that, it's got to be Chosen. I love Yuji
he is
so
the goat,
much.
man.
And
He
I
is
and
the
he's such a badass. He's
goat.
got the balance and the kind of fight and the feistiness that Johnny has. It's the perfect balance of both. And I think Chosen would be such a funny like addition. Like it would turn, Korean Cobra Kai. It would be like a comedy. But it would be amazing. It'd be so good.
Yeah, great choices. And one final question. If you could have Yoon fight anyone from the history of the Miyagi-verse, who would it be and why?
Oh, history of the whole entire
Yeah.
Miyagi-verse?
And that
Dang,
includes
that's a
Jackie
big
Chan as
question,
well.
man.
Yeah, I know. Sorry for putting you on the spot.
Ooh. That part of me wants to say Chosen because I feel like Chosen is just like the OG Quan. You know what I mean? Like it would be crazy to see him in the end Karate Kid 2 fight where they're at the festival and he's fighting next to that statue in the middle of, Japan. That would be so cool. Um, Gosh, but the whole series, I feel like I don't know, man. Maybe Yoon versus OG Johnny Lawrence, like way back, the original Karate Kid. That'd be pretty fun. I'd love to see the two of them at like the OG Sekai Taikai and the two of them kind of competing against each other. That'd be super fun.
That would be interesting. Yeah, and definitely from your perspective, really fun as well.
Yeah.
Daniel, that's all from me, man. Thank you so much for your time. I really
Hey,
appreciate
thank you so much
it.
for bringing me on. It was sweet.
Yeah, no, I had a great time as well. If you guys haven't seen Cobra Kai season 6 part 2 yet, please go and check it out. I don't know what you're doing. It's like 5 days into it.
Come
Go,
on.
come on. I
It's
can't
already
wait.
come out. It's badass. It's better than
Exactly.
ever.
Exactly. But yeah, thank you so much for your time, Daniel. I truly appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man.